This is Spectrum.
Alternative medicine, homeopathy, secret society, hypnosis, the paranormal, alternative energy, UFO, abduction, the weird, the wild, and the wonderful.
With your hosts, Tom Theophanous and Scott Jordan.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Spectrum Radio Network on BBS Radio 2. I'm Scott Jordan here with my co-host, Tom Theophanous, and remember, there's no such thing as too much information. Oh, my Lord, it's another week gone by already. Hey, Tom.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
Yeah,
last week was a doozy, wasn't it?
Oh, well, Michael Tsarian, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Wow. And we went overtime, too. I mean, we went...
way overtime.
Yeah, like 2 hours of... but, I mean, you got someone like Michael Tsarian, man. You just... The questions don't stop. We're going to have to do another show.
Sure.
Cover some more stuff. Okay, this week, who do we got? Who do we got this week?
We have Peggy Kelly-Davies, who is the founder of the Hypnosis Connection in Bowmanville here in Ontario. She's a certified hypnotherapist, a master hypnotist, and is a board-certified hypnotist and certified instructor through the NGH, which is the National Guild of Hypnotists in the U.S., and is also an award-winning certified instructor for 5-path and 7-path hypnosis through the Banyan Hypnosis Center down in California. She's also a director on the board of directors for the Ontario Association of Hypnotherapists for the last couple of years. And she's also the president of the Toronto East chapter of the NGH and the vice president of the Mississauga NGH here in our area. So welcome, Kelly. Peggy, I should say.
Welcome, Peggy. That's a lot of hats you're wearing.
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit of experience behind me there.
Oh, I'll say. That's a lot of hats. So,
and by the way, Scott, this was my teacher.
Yeah.
This was your teacher. There you go. This was your teacher in hypnosis. So if Tom screws up, we can blame you.
Well, no. Tom's responsible for his own stuff.
There we go. That's the way to do it. That's a good answer. Okay, so do you want to start out, Tom? This is your teacher.
Yeah,
you must have a question.
Well, the bottom line is that hypnosis has always been kind of a hidden art. It's been not too well explained out there. So
there's a lot of misconceptions about it. Yeah,
a lot of misconceptions. So tonight I want to be able to do away with all those misconceptions and clarify to what hypnosis is. So maybe Peggy can give us a rundown of what hypnosis is and a little bit of its history.
Okay, so hypnosis has been around for years, but it's been misperceived of what hypnosis really is. We as human beings go in and out of hypnosis every single day by ourselves. It's a very natural state of being for us. It simply means that we're in the subconscious part of our mind, which is the part of the mind that runs us. We kind of go back and forth between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind throughout the run of the day. We spend most of the time in our conscious mind, which is our logical, analytical mind. But it's very limited to the amount of information that the conscious mind can hold. It can only hold like 7 to 9 pieces of information at once. The subconscious mind, however, is like a video recorder. It records everything we're ever exposed to our entire lives. So, simply put, when we are in the subconscious mind, we are in hypnosis, basically, in a nutshell. Now, the biggest misperception about hypnosis is that we go to sleep or we go unconscious or we go off to Never Land and come back and poof, magic has happened and we're not aware of what's happened. And that is not true.
Okay.
Like I said, we all go in and out of hypnosis every single day and we're wide awake. We have our eyes open. We're walking around. We're talking at the deepest level of hypnosis that you can go into. You can be walking and talking.
Now, is that sort of like running on automatic? like if you've gone to work the same way for the last 10 years,
Yes.
and you get up in the morning and you're groggy and you got your first cup of coffee happy and you're driving to work and you get to work and you don't really remember the drive.
That's right.
You're sort of going there on automatic. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. And that's a light level of hypnosis. And how that happens is, as you're driving to work, you're actually thinking about something. And so your focus is actually on your thought. And as you're driving along, you're not consciously aware of what you're driving past. Now, if somebody was to swerve into you, it's like daydreaming in high school. You can still hear papers shuffling and pens clicking and the teacher talking. So if the vehicle were to swerve into us or the teacher were to call out our name, we'd react immediately. It just means that our attention is focused elsewhere. So when we focus our attention on anything, whether it's the TV or the driving or whatever it may be, or a thought, it slows the brain waves down, and as that happens, we move into the subconscious mind, which is the part of the mind that runs us. And we'll just go in there for a few seconds at a time, and then we'll go back to the conscious mind, and it just keeps going back and forth like that all day long, really. But yeah, so highway hypnosis basically means your focus is on your thought and not on what you're doing.
Long-distance runners have this thing that they go through at at some point during the run where they're just sort of running on adrenaline, and they've been running a long time. They'll go into this altered state of consciousness. This has been reported over and over and over about how long-distance runners will go into. Is that sort of, are they slipping into the unconscious?
Yeah, well, I call it the subconscious, which, and it depends on who you talk to, is the subconscious, the unconscious, but yes, into the part of the mind that runs you. We go on automatic pilot in there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they go in, and so they're so focused on what they're doing, you see, so if you focus on anything, like I said, you'll go into the part of the mind that runs us.
Right.
And so they become so focused on what they're doing that's exactly what happens, yes.
And that includes meditation as well, the yogic sort of...
Well, yeah, meditation can do that as well. Meditation and hypnosis are basically the same thing. You use the same process to get there, except for meditation is used to clear the mind, and hypnosis is used to clear up a conflict in the mind.
Right, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between stage hypnosis and the regular hypnosis that we're discussing here right now?
Basically, there is no difference. Stage hypnotists will do hypnosis for entertainment purposes, so they do things that are fun and, for entertainment purposes. Whereas we are more in a therapeutic clinical environment, so we use the same techniques as they do to get our client to make the changes that they've come in to make, except for we have people stop smoking or lose weight or stop biting their nails or what have you, whereas they have people up there dancing on stage or whatever.
Barking like dogs.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, I guess what I was trying to get at is most people always ask that question is, when they come in, are you going to make me do something very strange?
Well, really, something, we can't make you do anything that you don't want to do. I mean, if we could, just think about it, we'd have you go rob the bank and bring us back the money and forget you ever did it,
Yeah.
Right,
but
right.
If you want to do something, then, of course, your mind is open to that. But if your mind is not open to it, for example, with a stage hypnotist, they'll always ask for a volunteer. So if you're not open to doing something silly or stupid up on the stage, then you're certainly not going to put your hand up or run up on the stage. They'll never pick you out of the audience because they need people who are going to be open to suggestion.
Is hypnosis safe?
Absolutely, yes. No one has ever been harmed by going into the hypnotic state, ever.
Okay.
Hollywood would portray it that way sometimes, but no, it's not. It does not like that at all. And you're always aware of what happens in a hypnosis session.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I get that.
Or you will always remember, I should say, what happens in a hypnosis session as much as you would remember in any conversation.
Yeah, because, the average person assumes that, they're going to be asleep and they're not going to remember anything that, that was
or
done.
that they're going to go under, and so under applies that they're going to go somewhere that they're not going to be aware of, You know, a lot of people will ask me that, will I remember everything, or will I remember what I'm saying, or things like that. And yes, you will always remember.
Unless you're giving a hypnotic suggestion to forget, right?
That's right, yes.
Right.
You're giving a suggestion for amnesia, yes.
Okay.
Which
okay.
stage hypnotists do.
Which is part of the act, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's no reason for us to do that.
What problems can hypnosis help with?
Oh my goodness.
That's a long list, right?
You know, sleeping problems, study and test anxieties, fears and phobias, nail biting, motivation, sports enhancement. I mean, you name it, really, we can use hypnosis for.
Mm-hmm. Who can get hypnotized?
Anybody. Anybody that wants to be hypnotized and can follow instructions can be. It used to be thought years ago, you know, old school, that 20% of the population couldn't be, but that's not the case at all. We've discovered over the years now that anybody that wants to be hypnotized, that can follow instructions, that are of normal intelligence, can be. And usually people that are, say, schizophrenic or maybe mentally challenged. And the only reason they can't be is because they can't hold a focus long enough, you know. And then people will say, well, you know, I can't hold the focus that much. That's a little bit different, you know. But if you can follow instructions, you can be hypnotized.
Right. So in like, for instance, in clinical hypnosis, how does that differ from what we do?
Clinical hypnosis is more working with the medical community, so medical issues.
But does it differ in any way in the approach that they take?
No, they'll still use the same techniques, you know, but they work more with medical issues.
Okay, so basically clinical hypnosis, the only difference is that they deal through a doctor or somebody with a degree in that area.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
How does hypnosis remove bad habits?
Because the mind, the part of the mind that runs us, the subconscious mind, what happens is, well, I'm not sure. There's so many different things. Really what happens is that the mind generates an emotion, and at some point in time we will do something. And when we do that something, whether it be smoking or biting our nails or whatever habit it is that we're developing, it takes our focus off the feeling that comes up. And so the mind realizes that when our focus is off that feeling that was just generated, then we feel better. So it kind of logs that in there, and then the next time the feeling comes up, the mind says, oh, the last time you did that, you felt better, so I'm going to have you do that again. Because the whole purpose of the subconscious mind is to protect us, to keep us safe, and to make us happy. So there's no logic over there, so it believes, even if you're on a diet, it'll say, have a piece of chocolate cake, if it believes it makes you feel better than the feeling that's coming up. Whether the feeling is fear or anger or sadness or guilt or whatever it may be. Once your focus is off that feeling and onto a piece of cake or onto whatever you're eating or smoking, then it'll have you do that.
Okay.
So with hypnosis, what we do is we go in and the mind actually takes us to what it's related to, and we process that out of the mind, which releases it out of the mind, and then the mind won't have you do whatever that habit is anymore because there's nothing there for you to be distracted from. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, good.
Perfect sense. That's good.
Now, does an average person able to shift from a conscious to a subconscious with control, to be able to do it themselves in this fashion?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, self-hypnosis.
Okay.
When a person does self-hypnosis, they bring themselves into the subconscious mind. And then when they bring themselves out, they'll go back to the conscious mind. But even when you're in hypnosis, the mind still will teeter back and forth out into the conscious mind. And that's why a lot of people, when they do get hypnotized, they think that they're not. It's almost like a dream state. Like you don't stay at one level all the time. You're up and down, you know, or back and forth between the conscious and subconscious mind. So when you're in the conscious mind, you're aware. When you're in the subconscious mind, you're not. For example, with the highway driving again, you know, you're focused on a thought, so you're not aware consciously of what you're driving past. You're aware of your thought. You're on your thought, right?
Yep. Right, exactly. I got another question in relation to that. What
Okay.
about, say, here's an example. You worked an 18-hour shift.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an hour and a half drive to get home.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in that drive, you don't necessarily fall asleep the way you would where your head hits the pillow and you're out like a light sort of thing.
Yes.
But you fall asleep and you have a little dream sequence. I'll tell you one that I had. I was coming home from an 18-hour shift. You know, I was coming into Hamilton on the highway. And just as the highway goes down and cuts off to go onto the main street there's the lake, the bay there.
Uh-huh.
And then the guardrails. I closed my eyes just for a second, and I seen my car go across 3 lanes, through the guardrail, up through the air, and then go into the Lake Ontario. And I was going underwater, and I just snapped to it. I'm still in my lane, and I'm reaching for my my seatbelt to take my seatbelt off because I thought I was going underwater.
Mm-hmm.
And that all happened in a split second, and I just was like, okay, well, I guess I'm still on the road. I was still in my lane. There was no time passed. What's that experience? What's that about?
I really don't know what that would be. It seems to me like you had some kind of a future psychic experience or something.
Yeah, I don't know that.
You know,
well, don't tell me the future I'm going to be.
It almost seems like you could tell what was going to happen in the next couple of minutes, and then you snapped out of it, and it didn't happen. So I don't know. It
was a weird one. That one happened last year. I was coming home from work from Toronto. I was coming home from Toronto to Hamilton, and it just was a split second. And in that split second, I went across all 3 lanes, through the guardrail, into the water, and snapped out of it. And when I snapped out of it, I was taking my seatbelt off in the real world. And then I clicked it back in again, and I went, okay, wait, I'm still on the highway here.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of psychic ability or something.
Actually,
really,
I had
nothing to do with hypnosis. Although, I mean, you know, in hypnosis you hallucinate, but I mean, which is the deepest level of hypnosis that you can go into. But what I mean by hallucinations, when people think about hallucinating, they think about, you know, hallucinating something drastic or something. But what I mean by that is, for example, if you're getting a cup of tea and you're looking for the sugar, and so you look over to the spot where you normally have the sugar, and as you look over for the sugar, you just happen to be in the subconscious mind, and you say to yourself, oh, no sugar. Then you go and you ask somebody where the sugar is, and they say, oh, I just put it in the cupboard. It's on the second shelf. So you go to the cupboard, you look, and you go, oh, no sugar. You go, no, there's no sugar there. And they go, yes, there is. I just put it there. So you go back and you look and you go, no sugar. And then all of a sudden they come along and they point to it. When they point to it, they're bringing your conscious awareness to it, and then all of a sudden you see the sugar. And you go, oh, my goodness, I can't believe I was staring right at the sugar and I didn't see it. Now, how that works
happens all the time.
That's right. And we cannot go any deeper into hypnosis than that. And we are talking, we're walking, our eyes are open, we're listening, you see. So there is no deeper level of hypnosis than that. So how that works is when you look over for the sugar initially and you don't see it and you say to yourself, no sugar, it just so happens that you're in the subconscious mind at that split second. If the subconscious mind accepts any suggestion, no matter what it is, then it's going to do it. So when you said no sugar, it accepted that suggestion, so it's going to show you no sugar until somebody brings your conscious awareness to it. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you look at the sugar and you say no sugar that that's going to happen. It's just when the mind accepts the suggestion. And going back to the smoking, I mean, a person can come in and we can just give them suggestions, and if their mind accepts the suggestion, then they'll quit, which is very common. And that's why some people will quit on a first session and some people won't. Because if the mind doesn't accept the suggestion, then we need to go in and find out what the driving force is in the mind, process and release that out of the mind so that the mind will accept the suggestion for what the person wants, which is to stop smoking.
Now, could that be emotionally attached to something in their past?
Yes.
Like they were 14 years old. I'm just picking this randomly out of there. That's got nothing to do with me at all. But let's just say their parents were, there was some difficulty with their parents, or maybe a loved one died, and that caused stress in their life. And because of the stress in their life, they started smoking. But they've never let go of that attachment. It was a very, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what can happen. That's exactly what can happen, and that's why if they would come in for a session with hypnosis and we just gave them suggestions and the mind didn't accept it, then they wouldn't quit. So we'd say to them, well, you need to come back for another session. And so what we would do is we'd find out what that feeling is that they have every time they have a cigarette, and then the mind connects that for us. So then when we bring that feeling up, the mind would bring us back to that earlier time or situation when the mind decided to smoke, and we change that, which releases it out of the mind, and then the mind doesn't have a smoke anymore.
Right,
so
because there was there was an event that started it off, and it's never let go of that event.
That's right, and then, you know, depending how long ago that was, there could be other events that could compound that and make it stronger.
Oh, okay. So like just layering it like bricks.
It could, yes. And that's why usually as we get older, things get worse. For example, people are afraid of water. Well, when they're kids, they're not so bad. And as they get older, or afraid of flying, you know. And then it gets really, really bad. So, because as we get older, it gets worse because those things can compound. And there's no logical reason for it. For example, I had a lady came in with a fear of needles, and it goes back to when she was abused. So what would you think needles would have to do with abuse? Nothing, right? But it was the movement of the arm. It was the movement of the person that was abusing her reached across her and grabbed her arm, and then the nurse reached across her and grabbed her arm in the same fashion, and that triggered the mind.
It made a connection.
Yes. But logically, we wouldn't think that would have anything to do with it. I mean, she said to me, like, I've never had a bad experience with a needle. I don't know why I'm afraid of needles, you know?
So you had to root out any of the connections. Interesting, you said that about swimming. Babies are born knowing how to swim.
Yes.
They know how to swim. I mean, women are doing births, underwater births. Right?
That's right.
You know, that's a big thing. And what happens is, you can take any newborn baby in the water, they swim like a fish.
Mm-hmm.
But as the child starts developing and gets older, you can have the programming kick in. Like every time the baby, as it's a crawling, you know, or a toddler that's starting to walk, it goes near the edge of the water, the mother says no. So that child will associate no to water. No to water.
And so that very easily could generate that, yes.
It could very easily generate a program. So why do we have to teach our children at grade 4 or whatever how to re-swim again when they knew how to do it when they were babies?
Yeah.
Well, it's
because of our fears, right?
The rest of their life, mommy and daddy were freaking out every time they got near water.
Yeah.
So they don't want to see when a child looks at their mother and father, who are their guardians and their teachers, if they're getting upset, if you go near water, you're going to ingrain that in your body and associate water bad, right?
That's right. Well, you know, it's a learned behavior, and there's a lot of our behaviors that are learned from our parents and other authority figures in our lives. And so we can grow up building our belief system on those.
Exactly.
But hypnosis can help change that.
was like deprogramming, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty well. Anything that
would you say?
that you want to do that you can't do, hypnosis can help with, basically.
What would you say?
Except for except for fly. I mean, we can't have you fly, But I mean, anything like
you know what? You just ruined my whole night because that was going to be my thing.
Oh, sorry.
Flying. I mean, I have a thing. I want to fly, but you just there goes that idea.
Well, I mean, maybe you'll be the first.
Okay, well that would be good. Go ahead, Tom.
So, Peggy, would it make sense to teach from a young age how to do self-hypnosis? How would that affect us? And as
well, a lot of kids are really already in the subconscious mind. We don't really have to put kids into hypnosis. They're not really. Well, we have a critical factor, right? And that critical factor is not there when we're young. So it's only when we get enough information about any basic subject that the critical factor gets developed. And the critical factor is something that is like a filtering mechanism or a comparing mechanism. For example, if you didn't have a critical factor, I could say to you, well, the sky is blue, and you go, yeah, I know. Then I could say 2 seconds later, well, the sky is yellow, and you'd go, yeah, I know. Then 2 seconds later, I could say the sky is purple, and you'd go, yeah, I know, because there's nothing there to compare it to. But before we have that critical factor in place, we believe everything we're told. And that's why we believe in Santa Claus and, the Easter Bunny and Tooth Fairy and things like that, because we don't have anything in the subconscious mind at that time to compare it to. So as we get older, we get more blocks and filters generated.
Right. And some of them are beneficial, and some of them not so much.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
And so the ones that aren't beneficial, we can change, if you want them changed.
Right, you have to want this sort of thing.
Yes, that's right.
Now, tell us a little bit about the Banyan method, which is the one that
the 5 paths.
Yes.
Well, 5 paths is a process that we use, and it stands for 5 phases of advanced transformational hypnosis. And so what we do is we work with a client over usually a period of 5 or 6 sessions, and it allows us, when we follow this process, it allows us to get to the root cause of any issue that may be held at the subconscious level of the mind, which is the part of the mind that runs us, process that and release it out of the mind so the client can end up with permanent change. Because a lot of times, well, it's like anything. The weed in the garden, if you don't get the root out, it can start creeping back up. So this process allows us to actually work through, get the root out, and any attachments to it so that the client can be free of whatever's holding them back.
So you pretty much have to be able to go to further back into their lives and find out what the actual root of the problem is.
Well, we find that it normally goes before the age of 5 or some traumatic event in the person's life, yeah. And before the age of 5, because that's usually when the critical factor is being developed. Mm. So something that we accept before the critical factor is developed can run us for the rest of our lives. For example, if, we're 2 years old and we want a cookie and Mom says, no, dinner's about to be ready, and then you throw a bit of a tantrum, and your mother is short on patience that day, and she gives you the cookie, she gives in. Excuse me. Then you're 40 years old, and you're there throwing a tantrum with your husband, and or vice versa, and then they look at you and go, oh, my goodness, look how childish you are. And you think to yourself, yeah, I am, aren't I? And then you think, well, the next time I'll be more mature about it, but the next time you throw the tantrum again. You know logically that you don't want to do that, but it's just automatic, as mind says. When you want to get something that you want, you throw tantrum. So that's what we do.
Right. So you're running a very old program.
That's right. But it was before the critical factor was developed, and that's why it becomes an automatic thing.
Okay.
So a lot of trauma that causes stress to a lot of folks that come to see
Trauma
us.
can definitely change what's in the subconscious mind, yes.
So,
for example,
a lot of it stays from those kind of ages.
Pardon me?
I said a lot of the traumas may be from that early age.
Well, it could be any time in our lives. For example, when you were a young boy and you had a neighbor that had a beautiful red pickup truck or a beautiful red convertible, and you thought, wow, when I get older, I'm going to have one of those. And then when you get about 13, 14 years old, you're in a car accident with one of those. Now every time you see that vehicle, you get heart palpitations, you get nervous and hot and sweaty, like you don't want anything to do with that vehicle now. So the trauma has changed what's in the subconscious mind. And so we can go in and release that out of there so that when you see that vehicle now, you don't get nervous and upset and bothered.
Okay.
And now, is there a difference between the Banyan method and the traditional or Ericksonian hypnosis that has been used for many years?
Well, really, the Banyan process is exactly that. It's a process. All hypnosis, it doesn't matter, is the same, really. Okay, whether it's the NGH hypnosis or the Banyan hypnosis or the Ericksonian hypnosis. Ericksonian is like a flavor of hypnosis. But the Banyan is structured, and it's laid out. So when you take training, what happens is in the other courses, the biggest complaint that I've had from people, I mean, I teach the NGH curriculum myself. It's a very good curriculum. But they come out and they think that, well, I don't know what to do. Like, I know all these techniques, I've learned all these tools to use, but they don't know what to use and when to use it. It's kind of confusing for them. With the 5 paths, you just follow this process, and the process is like fail-proof. You just follow this process for the client, and it allows you to get to the root cause. No matter what the issue is that the person comes in for, you follow this process, and it releases whatever that block is out of the mind. And through this process, you learn advanced techniques. And so with the other courses, you'd have to take 2 separate trainings to get all of the training that you get with the 5 paths.
Okay. Now,
plus, we do the 7 path too, which is the advanced self-hypnosis that wouldn't be taught either in the other trainings.
And how does that differ?
Well, the 7 path self-hypnosis is a body-mind-spirit approach, and you're given positive statements, we call them recognitions, and you say this to yourself, and it resonates with any emotion that could be blocked at the subconscious level of the mind, and then that neutralizes that emotion that's blocked so that you can have change just by doing this yourself at home. And then, of course, you can get to a point where you can start to give yourself suggestions of the changes that you'd like to have in your life, because these positive statements that we give you help release the blocks and filters that would prevent the mind from accepting the suggestions that you're going to give yourself for the change that you want. So it becomes more effective.